Hi, everybody. On behalf of the ASQ Education Division, I want to welcome you all to the Beyond the Checklist, a modern approach to risk-based assessments webinar this evening. We appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. Tonight's webinar will be moderated by myself, Terrence Smith, the Vice Chair for Webinars, and Andrea Hubner, the Chair for Webinars. I would also like to disclose that this webinar is being recorded and will be accessible to the public. And by remaining with us and participating in this webinar session, you are consenting to our decision to share and distribute this recording across the ASQ website, internal digital platforms, social media platforms, and in educational and promotional materials. And next, we'll get into the agenda for tonight. So here's the agenda and what to expect. And as far as housekeeping goes, we ask that you please hold all questions until it's time for the Q&A session. You're also free to type your questions into the chat, but we will put out a few announcements once the speaker concludes his presentation, and then we will end with the Q&A session. And in order to help us get better and improve our quality of the webinars, we're also requesting that you all complete the quick survey that will be sent to you once the webinar concludes. And lastly, for those of you who are current ASQ members, you will receive a certificate stating the number of RUs that you have earned for participating tonight. And next, I'll introduce our speaker. So tonight we have Rob De La Espriella presenting for us. Rob is a former U.S. Navy submarine officer and pioneering nuclear quality assurance expert, and he is the founder of, and CEO of DLE Technical Services, LLC. With a career spanning 4 decades, Rob has led or facilitated hundreds of audits, assessments, accident investigations, root cause analyses, and operational excellence initiatives for a diverse clientele, including commercial nuclear power plants, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Department of Defense installations, the Department of Energy, national laboratories, and facilities across the U.S. nuclear weapons complex. Rob is a certified Kaizen team leader and a leading authority in solving complex and costly human and organizational performance problems and accident mishap investigations. His journey as a problem solving subject matter expert began when he was part of the historic Florida Power and Light team that won the prestigious Deming Prize from Japan in 1989. And that was a first for a company outside of Japan. His expertise is rooted in extensive training on methodologies such as total quality management, Kepner-Trigo, management oversight risk tree, Taproot, the Phoenix method, the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations Human Performance Evaluation System, and Lean Six Sigma. Since 2007, Rob has been a trusted advisor to executive leadership teams at DOE National Laboratories and the Nuclear Weapons Complex, focusing on issues that undermine asset integrity and national security. In 2015, Rob revolutionized the industry with the creation of Blue Dragon, which is a groundbreaking virtual framework designed to eliminate the causes of costly human errors and recurrent organizational problems in modern, high-tech work environments. Built on a foundation of critical thinking and systems theory and powered by artificial intelligence, Blue Dragon is a next generation approach that integrates the best elements of traditional methodologies, incorporates lean and agile techniques to eliminate waste, and it shatters traditional paradigms. Recognized as a thought leader, Rob is a sought after speaker at Navy conferences and industry groups, including our own American Society for Quality. For 6 years, he was a recurring guest lecturer at Princeton University's Keller Center for Innovation and Engineering Education and is currently an adjunct professor at Endicott College in Beverly, Massachusetts. In 2023, Rob's exceptional achievements in helping countless businesses enhance their safety, quality, enterprise performance, and efficiency with modern, innovative, and practical solutions earned him a place in the prestigious Forbes Business Council. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed speaker this evening, Rob De La Espriella.
Thank you very much, Terrence, and thank you, Andrea. I appreciate my host and setting this up. And wow, Terrence, I didn't know you were going to read the whole bio. I thought you might read the first paragraph, but wow. Now I got to talk faster to get through all this, but no, thanks very much for that intro. And I see we have a lot of folks from all around the world. This is really exciting. I appreciate you all being here and hopefully learning something in the next 45 minutes or so. I'm excited to show you some of the things that I picked up in my 40 years of a long career, mostly in nuclear, as you've heard. So why don't we dive in here? I did want to at least give a little credibility to my QA background. I'm a senior member of ASQ, and I've done a lot of things in the area of QA, actually 36 years of experience with respect to quality assurance, mostly nuclear. Um, and along the way, one of the things I'd like to highlight is if you see that Deming Prize medal there on the upper right, um, that's what really set me down a path of total quality management. I was part of a team that won the Deming Prize from Japan back in 1989. And as they say, the rest is history. It really helped shape my career. So I just wanted to highlight that briefly. The objectives for this evening, we're going to try to talk about, and I appreciate your comments on the chat, if you will, are the oversight programs that we have in place today, are they adapting swiftly enough to assess our defenses against dynamic, constantly evolving threat profiles? And we'll go a little bit into that. So I really like to know how you all are doing and how you all are adapting, because the premise for this is that our checklists are static. They're not very dynamic. They don't change very often. And so I'd rather talk about how can we evolve from these static checklists to something much more dynamic. And we'll talk about how to transform the oversight package into something beyond mere compliance. And even people evolve from compliance to performance. We're going to go above compliance and above performance-based assessments to something more impactful. And I really also like to broach the subject of being more business-minded, business-oriented in terms of our quality assurance audits and assessments. And I'll give you an example of that that really resonates with folks. And what we're driving towards is a risk-informed investigative approach to oversight. I'll explain that. And then I also want to bring in high tech. This is the industry 4.0, right? The age of AI and machine learning. I'd like to show you what I've done in terms of a virtual work environment and how we're working towards building AI agents that'll help us with analyzing information. So pretty cool stuff. But moving on to the very first question that I want you all to ponder, and please put your comments or questions in the chat so we can get to those. But this is a really interesting question, and I'm sure some of you have not thought about this, right? If you look at ISO 9001, and some of you are ISO 9001 compliant, do the words cybersecurity ever show up in that industry standard? How many of us are using industry standards that are not evolved fast enough, right? So our oversight programs are based on, and our checklists are based on quality assurance programs that are based on higher tier documents. Holy cow. And we've been auditing to standards from the 1980s and 90s. You know what I'm saying here, right? So this is why I felt the need to bring this up. In Industry 4.0, it really put our organizations and the humans within the organization in a whole new dynamic. A pressure cooker. I'll call it a pressure cooker. Humans are now in the middle of high tech, including AI, with matrix organizations and difficult and complex infrastructures, with hundreds and thousands of requirements, procedures that flow down from regulations, with KPIs and big data and goals and metrics and our pay tied to performance, which adds more pressure, and all kinds of cultural norms, you'll agree. So this is a whole new environment within which we work. And of course, we have external threats that are attacking us within this environment as well. So just wanted to toss that out. That comes from systems theory, by the way. So let me ask you this, or let me talk about this. We have a lot of challenges that are impacting our businesses. So manufacturing challenges, including we're having to integrate our systems. We have digital integration going on with our legacy systems, right? So we got to do that while we're trying to maintain production as well. we have data overload. This is the era of big data. We are constantly working towards adding more data and processing more data every day. And so imagine, just to pick one area, supply chain. How many of you have actually had an impact on your organization due to the changes in the supply chain in the last few years? You know, the COVID issue really put a dent on a lot of our supply chains, and we learned a lot about our supply chains in that era. So we're really struggling to maintain viability and control of supply chains. And how about regulations? We have new things coming on. You know, I put a drone picture up here. Do we have enough regulations for drones yet? What about all the other things that are out there? Do we have enough regulations to manage how AI is going to be incorporated, right? We have quantum computing coming on board, and we have quantum computers in the Department of Energy that are building cyber defenses with quantum computers to ward off other quantum computers, right? So there's a lot going on, and what I wanted to pose here is that these challenges have something in common. They're rapidly changing threat profiles, and we have to adapt. We have to adapt to these rapidly changing threat profiles and put in place what I would consider modern day advanced oversight strategies. So this is where we're going. I'm leading us towards, okay, that's the need for change. Now, how do we transform our organizations? And I hope you can't hear my puppies out there. They found something to bark at. Let me close the door real quick. If some of you have puppies at home, you understand. All right, sorry for the interruption, but here's where we're going, right? We have to get past the mere compliance with standards and expectations. And one level up from that is performance-based evaluations, right? Because these threats are coming at us very fast and furious, right? And so the whole era of the static checklist, I think, is over. We have to adapt something else. We want to go towards risk-informed, investigative oversight strategies and techniques. So I'd like to talk about that. But I'll start with my own experience as a nuclear site quality manager for 6 years at a nuclear plant here in Florida. And when I first took over, the whole concept of quality assurance from the senior managers on the line management side was that all you guys do is circle the bullet holes and draw chalk outlines around dead bodies. What good are you? You're not telling me anything I don't know. Yeah, so you stood next to me while the reactor went up in flames and you told me, oh, the reactor is going up in flames. What good are those kind of findings? So we really needed to do something, and I set about modernizing from a risk perspective how we approached oversight. And I'll give you this simple example. We have a refueling outage, and if you know, we take the full core out of a reactor and throw it into the spent fuel pool. And it sits there for a few weeks while we refurbish the core. So I have a hot core sitting in this pool, and this pool will boil in a matter of hours unless we keep it cool. But they were doing an exercise, and the way they set up the power supplies would have completely lost the power supply to the spent fuel pool cooling pumps. But us, with our new strategy, we're proactively looking at the scenario for this test 2-3 weeks in advance, and we caught the mistake with the red tag, the tag out for the power supplies for this evolution. We prevented anything from happening because we fixed it before the evolution even got started. We saved ourselves from boiling the core, Nuclear Regulatory Commission scrutiny, public scrutiny. It would have been a media event. We would have been shut down for days or weeks while we investigated it. And one day at a nuclear power plant that's out of commission is between $1 and $1.3 million per day. So one activity from a quality assurance oversight organization saved the company, I don't know, $6, $8, $10 million. My entire payroll for my organization was only $2 million a year. So now you see the value of evolving. And I wanted to put this chart up here to tell you where I'm going with this. Compliance is bare bones, minimum standards. And most of you are just checking performance against compliance. And if you're doing performance-based oversight, that means you're out in the field and not just looking at paperwork. Okay, great. So now we're out in the field and not just looking at paperwork, but you're still just circling bullet holes in many cases, right? So I want to get us to think about risk-based oversight. And what does that mean? Well, I have a few slides. And then investigation-based oversight, which means get a little deeper than the superficial finding. So let's talk about that, right? And what we're going is to generate high value findings that the organization will actually pat you in the back. Let me take you back to that spent fuel pool example. When we brought that up and we told them this saved us probably a 10-day shutdown and NRC scrutiny and so on, what do you think the senior managers and executives came and said to me? They hugged me. They said, thank you. They patted us on, they patted my entire organization on the back. And that's the kind of relationship that we enjoyed. So let's talk about risk-based auditing. And I bring up the bow tie risk assessment model, which I love, I use all the time. If you look in the middle of the bow tie, you've got the events happening. So events are taking place between minor and catastrophic levels of significance. But in front of that, to the left of that, is an entire line of defenses, which are our procedures. We also have PPE and physical barriers. And we also have cyber controls, right? To protect our software, et cetera. So those three form our line of defenses. And they're protecting us against a whole host of threats. Now, when we have events, that means that the line of defense has failed. So what I'd like to do is talk about looking at the line of defenses against current evolving threats. That's the concept here. So let's talk about this a little bit. And if we look at from the big picture standpoint, what audits need to be looking for is what is the system that's preventing bad things from happening. So we need to take a systemic look at what is going on. Like the maintenance of an organization, the maintenance program is a system. Operations is a system. And that's the way we have to look at it. So the evaluations must be systems-based to be effective and holistic, to take a really good look at it. We need to see what threats and vulnerabilities are coming up, right? What's going to happen that poses a risk to me? What is my current threat profile? And that's how we're going to build a better checklist to focus on high-risk evolutions, high-risk activities, emerging threats, and not simply the same standard checklist we've used for the last 10, 20 years, right? The defenses are what we need to focus on. The strength of our defenses is how you win this game. So what we need to do is focus resources on proactive performance-based assessments to strengthen these lines of defenses. Are these working the way they should? Well, let's see what the performance is, and let's see if that tells us that some of these defenses are not working very well. So this is, you're starting to get into the risk management space, but it's very important that you understand that. Now, if we have issues, and I'm sure you're documenting issues in your corrective action program because all quality assurance programs have a corrective action piece to it. Well, there had to have been a number of things that failed because in highly regulated environments with QA programs and hundreds and thousands of standards, guess what? A whole host of them failed for us to have any kind of event, any kind of a problem. So we have to do an analysis of those defenses, right? And of course, we can have a scalable approach based on the level of significance of those events. And one of the best things we could do is to trend the lower level events, which are actually indicative of something deeper going on. Get some trending on the board, find negative trends, and then kick off a more impactful investigation, audit, or assessment, right? Because what these trends are telling us is that there's deep-seated organizational, programmatic, and sometimes even cultural weaknesses that are dormant, that are laying there, causing us to have problems. So why don't we evaluate the effectiveness of the line organization's tracking and trending program? Because that's how you get them to be proactive. And in many cases, this is broke. A lot of places I visit, they're terrible at doing it. If you could do at least a single tier Pareto analysis of your corrective action program database, you'd be doing well. If you can do multi-tiered, second tier, third tier Pareto analysis, now you're playing with fire. And that's what I love to do, right? So tracking and trending is an excellent way to approach this. Let's look at the back end now. Of course, when you have an event or a problem, how well does the land organization respond to mitigate threats? So what is their response? Not just quality assurance organization, but how are they responding to events? Are they a learning organization? Are they documenting, tracking, closing out issues, right? So that all comes from your evaluation of their corrective action program, right? So we have to make sure that we test their ability to respond to issues and that they have a graded approach to causal analysis, which is how they investigate to find out the real causes of what's going on. In some cases, though, what's happening is they're suppressing the event classification because they don't want to do the heavy lifting of the higher tier investigations, right? And so you want to hold the line management's feet to the fire, hold them accountable by this simple statement. If we cannot possibly tolerate another one of these problems or events, then you must be doing a root cause analysis. Otherwise, you're doomed to repeat, right? So I find that oversight organizations and regulatory agencies like the Government Accountability Office, like the NNSA, the DOE Site Office, the NRC, and many, many more, they don't have a high enough standard in this regard. They're not holding the line management accountable for actually identifying the issues and the deepest seated causes of those issues and putting corrective actions in place to prevent recurrence. That's part of what nuclear or what quality assurance should be doing, by the way. Okay. And then their corrective actions are often abysmal. Corrective actions can often default to the initial containment set of actions, as opposed to actions to actually prevent recurrence of the deep-seated issues. So we should be looking at the effectiveness of their corrective actions. Now, you take all of this and you start to see what oversight can do to be more impactful. You can be more risk-based, help the organization be proactive by us being more proactive as well. Okay, so now let's talk about investigative techniques. And for that, I'm simply going to bring up a couple of slides because this is a whole course in itself. What made us famous, my organization was listed as one of the tops in the United States, and actually the World Association of Nuclear Operators sought me out to help Slovenia, South Africa with QA improvement initiatives because that's how effective we were. And what I was doing was showing them that a finding on a symptom is no good, not a lot of value, right? So we want to ask a few questions via cause and effect to have more powerful, more significant findings. And so we're looking at a basic cause and effect sequence that says, hey, we noticed that you didn't meet the requirement. And that's where oftentimes the finding would stop. Well, let's go a little deeper and start asking why not and see how far we can get. All right. So just keep putting a why in front of their answer and see how far you get before they run out of answers. And those deeper ones are going to be the better finding. So just a couple of thoughts on apply cause and effect when you're doing your assessments and audits, see how far you can get. You have better findings. Now, I'd like to introduce to you a virtual framework that can be used to supersede conventional checklists. And I want to bring this up and here it is. And I'm going to give you access to this. I'm going to share the link. Actually, we have this link that we'll put, not now, but in a few minutes. But I just wanted to go through and give you a sense. This is a virtual whiteboard and unbelievably powerful, right? There's many companies that have virtual whiteboards. They're fantastic. You can collaborate many people at a time. But if we can take a quick look here, right? So you have any way you want to organize your administrative type of information, like the scope of your assessment or your audit. You can even have your standard checklist already listed here with a hyperlink to the checklist if you want to have that for a reference. Then we get into a little deeper. I would suggest learning how to do a systems inventory, understanding systems theory, that in order for us in this example to have a solid, sound maintenance program, I need to be looking that they have all of these things in place. That's what my audit should be looking at. A real-time systems inventory as to what makes maintenance work properly. It includes work controls, corrective maintenance program, lockout, tagout. All these things have to function for me to have the desired output out of my maintenance program. Okay. I can now bring in all kinds of information on this whiteboard. And the example I've chosen here is we have gathered performance on industrial safety. And I use that because it's a universal language. So we've gathered performance evidence related to the functional area of industrial safety and in two areas, the use of personnel protective equipment and the use of power tools. And when we're out there, we're finding issues, right? We're finding issues with not wearing eye protection, not wearing steel-toed shoes, not wearing hard hats. So you get the gist, right? So we're finding performance-based evidence that says something's not going well. Same thing for the use of power tools. They're supposed to be working in pairs in the buddy system, and they're not. They're using tools with frayed cords. So you document, this is performance evidence as to what's actually going on. Now, we're going to go and establish the applicable defenses based on the evidence we've collected. So now we bring in the requirements that apply, not the checklists that are, God knows where they're taking you, but let's focus on what's going on, and we're looking for things that deviate from requirements. So we know we have issues, and we find the standards, and that's what we put here where our checklist used to be. So we'll line up all of our requirements that should have prevented those problems from happening, and here they are, right out of the industrial safety program. You can be very detailed and list the section number and exactly what it says. And now what we do, instead of stopping here, and instead of issuing a finding that would have said, finding number 1, mechanics are not complying with PPE requirements. Here's my 3 examples. Finding number 2, they're not complying with tool usage, power tool usage. Here's my 3 examples. And that's the typical finding we would see. That's antiquated. That's not where we're going. What I want us to do is convert these issues into lines of inquiry questions by analyzing why these defenses failed. This is the defense in place. We found evidence that it failed, right? Remember what I said about the risk bow tie risk assessment model. The defenses are in place to stop bad things from happening, but in order for us to see these problems, these defenses are failing. So now we get into, okay, why is this happening? And we write our lines of inquiry question. Very good. So now we have evidence, we have requirements, we have lines of inquiry questions, and this is going to help us. We go to the next phase, phase 2. Let's go talk to the folks who are affected, and let's line up these questions. And I use themes that you'll recognize. These themes are from the Fishbone. Who doesn't know the Fishbone? Same thing is in nuclear, we call it the anatomy of an event. High degree of correlation there. But look at this. We have the human aspect in terms of at-risk behaviors. So we're doing behavioral analysis whether you recognize it or not. We look at where the people were set up to fail, error-likely situations in the work environment. We're looking at programs, processes, and procedures that apply. And we're looking at management control systems. And in some cases, equipment interfaces, right? So if you think of the Fishbone, man, method, machine, methodology, environment, all that, it's all covered. So we need something like that. And now we go into cause and effect analysis, and we start asking the questions. Why is this happening? What's going on here? And when you're doing cause and effect, you'll be looking for the common causes, and that's what these color Post-its are that show, without drawing any lines, because lines are very messy, that these symptoms, we'll call these symptoms, the initial list of lines of inquiry, are nothing more than a symptom that something went wrong. And instead of stopping at that high level finding, we're going to dig deeper and go a few questions deep and find out that there are these deeper issues here. Now look at what these findings look like. The new findings are that there's more emphasis on production and safety, that there's a shortage of supervisor because management is not filling open positions and they're not out there reinforcing standards and expectations on tool usage and PPE usage. Training is not being done or not being done effectively, creating knowledge gaps. And how about this one? The union is telling workers not to use the buddy system because they think it's designed to rat each other out. So we have union contradicting a requirement. And one more. Equipment is getting checked out and it's got frayed or damaged equipment, but there's no checkout counter position. It's not in the labor contract. It's not funded. So now you could have tried to fix the people who made the mistakes up there. That's what the finding would do in the traditional sense. But instead, now we're fixing deeper seated issues that they probably didn't know about. And this will help prevent many, many more future type of issues. So you're out to have long lasting corrective actions that have a lot of impact, not simply actions that'll stop one incident from happening tomorrow by those exact people. And I have to tell you this. When we have problems across our organizations, across our companies, and if we could change those problems, the problem solving process into a mathematical equation, I'll tell you this, the humans in the organization are the infinite variable. Humans are an infinite variable in our problem equation. Humans create infinite possible outcomes, right? So you can't just fix these two humans on this day for that piece of equipment or whatever's going on there. You need to understand what's going on much deeper than that. And when you find these deeper seated issues, you're going to be able to prevent many more issues in spite of what the humans are doing. So you have to understand a little bit about cause and effect analysis. And now that we've done this bit of analysis and we have these issues, now we can create a nice table that shows what are the corrective actions. But let me give you some guidance here. If you understand the hierarchy of hazard controls, you'll know not to keep trying to pile on more administrivia, more procedure requirements, more notes, more training. All that adds to the layers of administrivia in your organizations. Or more PPE. You notice that that's at the bottom of the barrel. So when you marry this with an understanding of lean mistake proofing, you drive the organization and hold the bar up so that they're actually trying to eliminate the causes of the problem, not simply band-aid them with more procedures and the required training that goes with those procedures. That's one piece. The other piece is you have to understand that whatever you're finding, it probably affects other people, other organizations, the equipment operability of other equipment perhaps. So you have to do extended cause determinations. And so the corrective actions for these include the straight up corrective action to fix the issue and what is the extent of the damage caused by that problem. So now you have a little bit of a flavor of investigative audits and assessments. And with just these techniques, you can get some really good findings that have a lot of impact, a lot of future impact on the organization. And again, you can simply take your checklist and start here if you wanted to do it here. And once you find your evidence of whatever is going on real time with the threats that are going on real time, you can adjust this board any way you want. And I would like to leave you this board. And Andrea is going to do us the favor of putting a link to this board on the chat so all of you can come in and have fun with this, look around, play around. I've actually locked it all up so that you can't mess it up unless you learn to unlock it. But you can zoom in and out, take a good look at this at leisure. And the last thing I wanted to mention, because it's hugely important, we are now working with artificial intelligence and learning how to program AI agents. And the main thing that I suggest you do is understand what AI can do and cannot do for you. So let's talk about what it can do. Artificial intelligence can analyze data. So it can look at charts and graphs, analyze spreadsheets, and even better, what I like to use it for is I feed it my procedures. So we have fed an AI agent our procedures, our requirements, and then we fed it documented evidence of poor performance. So they could be occurrence reports, licensee event reports, condition reports. I don't know what you call your reports that capture bad performance, but feed it that, and then we train the agent to say, okay, here's my requirements, but here's what actually happened. Give me the deltas, and it will spit out all the deviations. And then you ask it to change the deviations into questions. And now the humans come in, grab those questions. That's your new checklist. Now you go talk to the humans and bring them in focus groups and ask them those questions. Line up the questions on the board. See how far you can go with a few white staircases. People used to call it the 5 whys, but 5 is only for equipment. There is no number for humans. So use cause and effect analysis and see how far you can get before you write your findings. And you might actually hit some really golden issues that the line didn't know about, and the value will go through the roof, because this is what I mean about a business case. Okay. You, whether you know it or not, in quality assurance, are part of a business unit of the organization, and you have a salary, right? So I, as a quality manager, had a $2 million a year payroll. And if you take a classic business approach, the sum of your payroll, the value of what you bring to the company should be about 3 to 5 times your payroll, right? So we needed to bring something like $6 to $10 million worth of value to the company for us to be effective from a business standpoint. The return on investment for our salaries, right? And I showed you with one incident, we saved the company about $10 million because we avoided a shutdown. Now imagine extrapolate that to 100, 200 things a year, or audits and assessments, and we're way ahead on the power curve. And we were, again, the line management called out the QA organization as one of the best they had ever worked with in the United States because of the positive sum gain that we brought to the station, right? So you're looking for a positive sum gain. In many cases, the issues put forth by the quality organization are a negative sum gain. And that means that, hey, you threw this out there and it cost me more money to fix something I already knew was broke than the value of the paper you wrote it on. Again, circling the bullet holes and drawing chalk outlines around dead bodies. So that's kind of what we want to stay away from and evolve to. So this is just a quick primer to hopefully get your appetites going, that there's other stuff out here that that we could do to make our oversight more impactful, and from a business standpoint, more of a return on investment of what the company is investing on the quality assurance organization, right? So that is the model that that I put forth. And now to recap here, where we're ending up is our oversight programs adapting swiftly enough to assess our defenses against continuously evolving threat profiles. You need to answer that for yourselves. What I've seen, and I'm a consultant across the nuclear weapons complex, the Department of Energy labs, commercial nuclear plants, that's my world. The answer is no, right? Quality assurance organizations are really stuck on checklists. And that's what's got my my attention, and why I'm on a mission to help other organizations to really evolve past that point. And so we presented a couple of strategies to move from compliance to and performance to get to that risk-informed, risk-based approach where you're analyzing the strength of the defenses in place before there's ever any big events, right? So focus on what are the defenses, what's the performance telling me about the effectiveness of those defenses, and wherever I find deltas, write questions and start asking questions and follow them through with a little cause and effect analysis. See what you find. So now we have both risk-based and investigative techniques to give you a better result. And that's what risk-informed oversight is about here. The business-oriented mindset is that you need to add value to your company. You can't just be a black hole where they throw money and it costs money to fix whatever QA puts out, as opposed to QA is a boon. It's saving tons of money by not allowing bad things to progress, to happen, or proactively getting ahead of a problem that was imminent. So think of proactive audits and assessments, and you'll start to get to a better target. And then I also presented this very sophisticated, powerful virtual whiteboard. This one's called Lucid. There's many more out there. And how we're going to start using artificial intelligence to enhance how we analyze data. But remember, AI is not going to replace the human when we need to talk to other humans and find out what their specific situation is and why are things happening the way they're happening. AI cannot answer that. And make sure you understand this. You can't just plug in all this information. This is what happened. These are our requirements. And you cannot ask AI, give me the root causes or give me the real issues here. It can't. Because if you understand systems theory, this group with these people and these behaviors are, very unique. So they're going to behave in a very unique manner. You need to talk directly to the people in that system in order for you to really understand what's going on here. AI might give you a generic answer that's an average across the world, and it could be biased, and it could be made up in some cases, as we know, right? AI hallucinates at times, so be careful. All right, very good. That's the end of my presentation. I'd like to turn it back over to Terrence now, and we will get to that Q&A.
All right, thanks for that, Rob. I hope everybody was able to take something away from that and actually found that presentation valuable and interesting. And if you have not done so, please take this time to prepare your questions as we make a few announcements before we get to the Q&A session. This is the speaker contact slide, so please take down Rob's information. Feel free to reach out to Rob directly, and you can also find out more information about Rob and Blue Dragon at www.bluedragon1-ips.com, or you can utilize that QR code that you see there that's displayed there to schedule an appointment with Rob. And again, please reach out to Rob for any specific questions. So we have a couple of upcoming webinars. On April 30, we'll be joined by Dr. David Adams, the president of Adams Strategy Group and adjunct professor at St. Vincent College. He'll be presenting to us about organizational culture and quality. And then we'll have Dr. Tracy Owens from the Innovation Division in The Ohio State University. He'll be joining us again in July for the second presentation in his innovation series. And there will be more information as plans materialize in the near future. So, we think that these upcoming webinars should be pretty interesting, and we hope that you can join us for those and any other events within the division and across the ASQ. Today's webinar was brought to you, of course, by the American Society for Quality and the ASQ Education Division. Together with over 70,000 individual and organizational members around the world, ASQ provides training, professional certifications, and knowledge to a vast network of quality professionals and others seeking excellence through quality. ASQ has the reputation and the reach to bring together diverse quality champions who are helping to transform the world's corporations, organizations, and communities to meet tomorrow's critical challenges. And for those of you who may not be a member, we encourage you to look into all that a membership with ASQ can offer to you, which can be explored at www.asq.org. And that concludes the ASQ Education Division announcements. So now we'll start the Q&A. And as stated earlier, you may type your questions in the chat. You can use the raise hand function so we can see that you have a question. And depending on how many questions there are, we may not get to every question, but please feel free to reach out to Rob using the contact info that was displayed earlier. So I saw a question from, I believe that was Lyle. Lyle says that to most of us, this seems obvious in a high risk cost environment. But how do you convince a lower risk organizational environment to make the upfront investment for in-depth proactive threat evaluations? That's Lyle.
That's an excellent question, and it really shows where I'm coming from, a highly regulated industry, which is commercial nuclear power and nuclear weapons. And I don't have a terrific answer for you for unregulated, low risk environments because I don't work in those. I can only say that I imagine it will be a bit more difficult because they wouldn't want to spend the money unless there's a real threat. So it has to be commensurate with the risks. If there's not a lot of risks or a lot of threats, then I don't think you'll need to go in this direction.
Okay. Um, all right. So the next question would be from I believe that's pronounced Jonah. Uh, uh, she says, how did you measure the effectiveness of this model versus the effectiveness of using a checklist?
That's a great question, Jonah. And I'll tell you this. So if I could measure it in terms of hugs and pats on the back and all that, it would be huge because the line organization was constantly complaining about what they were getting out of their quality organization, which is again circling the bullet holes, drawing chalk outlines around dead bodies. And so the effectiveness is in their reaction. Are they seeing value in what you're adding? And what happens at that point? You can actually measure monetarily your impact. And so I started to talk to them, and I didn't mention this, but when you can talk to management in terms of risk, cost, and schedule, you'll be doing yourselves a favor because that's what management language is all about. What is the risk that you're avoiding by doing this? What is the cost that you're saving them? And are you saving them schedule push, or are you helping them to meet deliverables by avoiding issues? So when you can translate your issues and your findings into cost, risk, and schedule, they instantly see the impact. And so the effectiveness was night and day. When we're named one of the tops in the United States and sought out by the World Association of Nuclear Operators to help other countries with their QA, that says we were on the right track.
All right. The next question is from Jared. Jared asks, what sort of resources can be used to gain a better understanding of systems theory?
Great question, because it's one of my favorite topics. And I put these two books on the chat. One of them is a really good primer called Thinking in Systems by Donatella Meadows. The other one, Systems Thinking for Social Change by David Peter Stroh. Those are really good beginner books. I would only caution you, don't worry so much about all of the diagrams that they draw. Cause and effect is good enough for us. Don't worry about their really intricate diagrams, but you'll get a sense of what we mean by understanding a system and how a system operates, right? System gives you the results that it was designed to give you, good or bad. So when you're getting bad results out of your organization, it means that the system has something wrong with it. You need to look at the whole system, not just the human failure aspect of the system. That's just a piece part. So you really start to broaden your horizon by understanding systems theory, and it is pretty important going forward. Good question.
Okay. Next question is from, I believe that's pronounced Marjan. They ask, is the AI validation in place to trust the feedback that it provides?
So what we did was we validated what we got by using a previous assessment, right? So we took an assessment that was already completed by the Los Alamos National Laboratory, as it turns out, and they gave us all their documents, and we put it into the AI model. And so when I pushed a button, the AI gave me all kinds of information. And I pushed another button, and in 10 seconds, it gave me all these lines of inquiry questions based on the analysis. And then I put those into the actual model that the humans built to do the assessment. And the AI model did better than the humans because it found more deviations, more issues to pursue than the humans did. So AI could be very powerful in terms of doing analysis. It's not very useful to then grab those questions and go talk to people. It's not going to do that for you. But the validation was a 1-for-1. Now I have clients that are actually building their own internal AI agents, and we're helping train those AI agents to do this kind of analysis. Again, one folder full of performance data, what's going on, the things that are not going well, and one folder full of all your requirements. And the AI model can be trained to look at the two and find deviations. And in time, you can keep adding your requirements until all your requirements are there. It makes life a lot easier to pursue these issues, which are threatening production, manufacturing, operations, maintenance, whatever it is. So yeah, AI is a whole new thing. It's a whole new ballgame. And yes, you have to develop your own. Your company has to buy its own AI interface, whatever that might be. So we're just starting to understand it better. Great question. I do have something before we go to the next question. If you notice that Andrea put there a link to the hidden cost of recurring issues calculator. You talked about measuring. How do we measure effectiveness? I'm giving you this spreadsheet so you can actually go into your corrective action program, document on this spreadsheet the numbers of A level, B, C, and D level issues, and then fill out the spreadsheet with all the variables to understand what is really costing your organization. And as I've encountered, if your organization is, let's say, 3,000 people and above, you're going to be in the close to 10 million a year in hidden costs of these recurring problems. To give you an example, I recently did a nuclear utility, and the 2023 numbers had 15,000 condition reports in their system, 2 nuclear plants, etc. The cost that they never calculated, because nobody does this calculation, was $32.7 million in 2023, was the cost of processing issues in these condition reports and analyzing them and evaluating them. And here's my big aha moment to them. They're having a constant stream of 10 to 15,000 issues a year, as your sites probably are, not that many, but whatever, some number of recurring issues per year. Let's just say 1,000 for fun. There are not 1,000 new sources of those problems every year, are there? It's a small group of problems that you haven't uncovered yet. You can help them uncover those with a bit of analysis, and those would be unbelievably valuable findings. And that's what made my group at the nuclear plant famous. We were finding things that management had no inkling of, whereas in the past they were like, "Oh yeah, we knew that. Oh yeah, so the guy made a mistake. What can we do about it? Humans make mistakes." So this calculator will help you pinpoint what your companies are spending on year in, year out, because they're not taking the deep dive. And I think that QA can raise the bar on the line organization and their corrective action programs.
Okay. Looks like we have about 2 questions left. One is from Stephanie. She says you mentioned using AI for data analysis, and where she's asking, where are concerns about inaccuracies in AI addressed with data analysis, where it is more difficult to fact check independently?
Well, you're going to have to do the proof of concept, which is what we did. The proof of concept says you take a completed assessment where you know the results, and then you feed the same information to your model and see what it puts out and see if it's at least the same or better, right? But data analysis is a lot simpler, believe me, than what you're asking a lot of large language models to do. Data analysis is something that a machine learning type of computer can do for you, right? You're asking it to say, compare this data to that data, find deviations, or look at this spreadsheet, analyze the spreadsheet. So we're not talking rocket science, really, but we're talking about what we were able to do, by the way, with our AI test case. We did in about 2 hours what normally takes us 2 weeks of analyzing 50 to 100 records, performance documents, building timelines, building lines of inquiry. It's typically a week or two to do that, to structure that chart, to put it together so we can go talk to people and find out what's going on. With AI, we did it in less than 2 hours. So AI can dramatically enhance your performance and really cut the corner in terms of number crunching and things that we can use computers for, but not replace when it comes talking to humans. Hopefully
Okay.
that answers your question, Stephanie.
Okay. Well, we'll end with one last question from from Jonah again. In implementing the new model, did you find an impact on the results of regulatory inspections, or is the process just more palatable for internal personnel?
Wow, great question. I'm glad you brought it up. Um, so in the case of another nuclear utility, the impact was, well, in two cases. Let me give you the two examples. In one, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was going to issue a high-level finding, a notice of violation to the utility. And because of that documentation, that kind of a chart that you see there, they knocked down the violation, which saved them millions. In another case, we were looking at a finding from the government to one of our clients that said, hey, your QA program has been completely out of whack since 2011, has been out of bounds since that time frame for over a decade. And anything you delivered, and this is nuclear weapons, any nuclear weapons or anything you delivered to us from that time frame is now bad from a paper standpoint. You have to paper whip all that all over again. So we were able to do the assessment and made that government finding go away. Again, saving them millions and millions of dollars in time and energy to reconstitute all those QA records. So if you use the investigative approach, you can really help the organization. And yes, it can have huge repercussions from a regulatory standpoint, where they want to know that you're ahead of the game and you're finding things before they do, right? That's the way I was in the NRC. Did I tell you I was a Nuclear Regulatory Commission inspector back in the day? And what we were taught is, hey, if the licensee, the organization is finding and fixing their own issues, let them have at it. So the oversight organization, you in quality assurance, can hold the bar high and make the organization be more robust in terms of self-identification and correction. You've done a great job. It's going to have a regulatory impact. They're going to be hands off. So yeah, absolutely has an impact. Thanks for asking. That's a really good one. And someone's asked about Blue Dragon real quick. Blue is my favorite color. I'm Daddy the Dragon in my family, right? My wife is a bad kitty, but we won't tell you why. And so I married Blue and Dragon. It sailed through the USPTO when I trademarked the name. That's as simple as it gets. Question.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Rob. And it's worth repeating that we truly hope that everyone in attendance found value in what was presented to you, that you can take something back with you to apply in your current roles. And again, I want to thank Rob for his willingness to present tonight. I also want to thank you all again for attending. Please do not forget to complete the survey that you received once we're done here. And we hope to see you all at the next Education Division webinar. Until the next time, you all take care and thank you.
And a big thanks to Andrea and Terrence for all their support. Thank you so much. This has been a very good experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks everyone for joining. Hope to see you next time.